of my 13-person group, and I always got the insult, like, it was, I guess it was just like a backhanded compliment of like, "Oh, your work's really pretty." And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh," and that's actually where my workshop series is called Make Pretty. And it's like
Yeah.
the story behind it is like kind of a dig at this jerk of a professor that I had, but I'm not bitter at all.
Oh no, of course not.
No resentment there. But I find it so odd that in this fine art program I was being kind of just like docked for having really aesthetically beautiful work.
Yeah.
And what I found is that a lot of that genre of educators, and honestly just kind of that personality and generation, if
Hmm.
you weren't this like dark tortured artist that like was willing to starve for their work, it
Yeah.
wasn't like commendable. Where I was like, dude, I just like sold my entire show and I'm making money on the weekends. Cool. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to I want to have like a life I enjoy, and I happen to be really good at this, so I'm going to go do it.
Yeah. Yeah, we do not have to be starving artists anymore. Like
No,
that is
it's
not
changed.
something you have to be as a photographer. It is changed to where you can. And even back then they probably could have too, but there's like something about, like, I know people who just, they want to be that martyr of like, well,
Mm,
I'm a struggling artist, so
right.
that's why I, make my own clothes, or that's why I do this. I'm like, you can make your own clothes because you love making your own clothes,
Totally.
and you can make a good living being an artist. So
100%.
yeah, no, I love that. So okay, so with portfolio, I mean, you talked
Mhm.
about how they were like, your photos are all pretty and everything,
Mhm.
and like that set you apart. You look different than everyone else in the program. What, like, what does that look like? How do you even begin to curate a portfolio, and why would we want to do that?
Yeah. So I think the place that I got to, I've always been good at kind of like being able to pick apart, like, hey, these all just kind of look too much alike. I'm going to choose one of these. Of these
Mm,
5 images, they all look the same. They all don't
mhm.
need to be in the gallery. Which is the best? Which is the strongest? I've been fairly good at being able to narrow that down. Maybe that's because of my schooling, going to art school. You just get, you know, that kind of drilled into you.
Yeah.
But it could just be inherently I'm good at cutting my own work. I don't know. But I think it's important to really start to examine your work when you are bored, when you are
Mm,
sick of shooting the same stuff. For
mhm.
me, Southern California weddings look a lot alike. And I'm sure in Texas, weddings look a lot alike.
Yes,
And
mostly in
so
barns. Yeah.
barns or tents or whatever it is,
Uh-huh,
like
uh-huh.
I was so sick of shooting on the beach. Like I was like, don't give me a nut out, like take me to the desert. Like I
Right.
want to get, out of here. So for me, it kind of became a point of shooting weddings for 6 or 7 years. They all looked the same. I was uninspired. I was so sick of looking at the same color palette. I was sick of um not necessarily working with the same people, but the fact that there was no creative, everything got very routine.
Mhm.
So, my curation, my most recent, like, big time curation that changed my business happened in 2020. And that was when I decided during COVID that I was not going to come out on the other side of this doing the same
The
stuff
same
that I
thing.
was.
Yeah.
I needed to completely change this. And what I did was I created 3 high-end, very intentional and marketable editorials for myself. I did it, spent a lot of money and just put it out there. Did an entire rebrand, did a whole new website, all in this like down season, right? Of our wedding season. So like right like November to February we're rarely shooting. In California our season's year round, but it's not as
Mhm.
much.
Yeah.
So I spent all this time. I'm due to launch. I'm due to launch like right pretty much like in the thick of COVID. We're all in lockdown. Like it's like I'm like whatever, I'm going through with it anyway. I'm doing it so that when we get to the other side of this, I've got more aligned clients.
Mhm.
So I get to that point and I just decided to completely overhaul my presence. And it made me feel more confident in the work that I was putting out there. It made me feel more excited about the work that I wanted to shoot. It helped me to really clarify what my signature style was. It was the first time that I really infused work that had my point of view. I talk a lot about like having an aesthetic point of view, and I
Yeah.
think curation helps create that. So for me, it was like, okay, how am I really just honing in on this particular um vantage point or point of view of mine that resonates so truly with me, that gets me excited, it has my own personal style. So I just put all of that out there, and it's so funny because when you do, people notice. Not just because of the drastic change, right? Like my work didn't necessarily look so different. My editing style changed ever so slightly.
Hmm.
I really got back to my roots and was shooting a lot more film, whereas before I was kind of just shooting to appease my client. Nobody wanted
Yep.
to pay for film.
Yep.
So my new process was, no, film is included. This is part of it. Um and so it had a different vibe, and I was so here for it. And within weeks of that launch, I got 3 inquiries that I all booked that were so aligned with where I wanted to go, and I even made sure I, like, reached out to one of the planners. I was like, "Hey, just wanna make sure that you saw this new rebrand, like, I've completely shifted gears, I'm not falling into that category anymore," and she said, "No, that's exactly why my clients wanted you,
Mm.
and you looked different than everybody else in Southern California looks the same. Yours looks slightly different, a little bit more editorial, a little bit higher, or like elevated, if you will."
Yeah.
So for me, it immediately started yielding returns. And because of the confidence, and felt so strong in the curated work that and body of work that I'd put together, I was asking for more money. And rightfully so. I've been in it long enough. I've had enough experience, and I've gotten to the point where I am able to discern what is should live on a website or be posted on social, or
Yep.
not everything needs to be out there. And I think that's
No.
the misconception, is
Yes.
less is more. And especially as you move up in your market, less is more. I can't you know I
Oh
can't
yeah.
say that enough. So
Yeah.
I was going, in a matter of weeks, charging double. And
Wow.
that's, I'm not saying that everyone, by
Right.
curating
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
body of work, is going to be able to do that. But what it does do is give you a shift in perspective, which can change so many other things about your business.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. I love that you said it, not everything needs to be out there, because for the first, probably 3 or 4 years in business, I blogged every single photo shoot.
Wow.
If it was a wedding, if it was an engagement, if it was bridal portraits, if it was family photos, newborns, anything, it hit the blog, and that's how I delivered like their sneak peek photos
Oh, I mean,
was
that's smart. It's smart business. That's really
uh-huh.
smart business, but it doesn't necessarily attract the people that you want.
No, it really didn't.
And you brought up a really good point too, that you're like, "Oh, weddings, portraits, babies, maternity, whatever, family, whatever it was." I I'm a believer that those things should all live separately. And I know that people will disagree with me on that they can all like coexist. I don't think they can. I think it confuses your client,
Mm,
especially if you are wanting to book a higher end client. They don't want to see you being able to do everything. They want to see you being able to do wedding
what they
photography
want. Yeah.
really well,
Hmm.
or family or maternity or newborn or whatever it is really well.
Yeah.
So figuring out how to, again, curate those separately, I think is important in establishing a brand.
Yes. I agree too. I really only do family photos for past couples.
Yeah.
Um
I mean, they're legacy clients. You
yeah.
absolutely should.
Yeah. And but I rarely post any of that
Yeah, you don't
online.
have to show it.
I don't even think I have that on my website.
Yeah.
And my website is for weddings because
Right.
that is what I specialize in.
Right.
And yeah, it makes sense that you would want to really showcase what you're wanting your ideal target clients to desire, because if they're coming to you and going to other photographers as well, and they're like, okay, so this one, it looks like they specialize in weddings. Like their whole website is weddings,
Mhm.
and social media is all about weddings, and they have these great tips and all this stuff. And then they go to yours, and it's like, here's weddings, and here's a newborn session that I did the other day, and here are some headshots that I did for this corporate client. It's like, okay, you're kind of all over the place. Like it
Yeah.
looks, your wedding photos are fine, but I don't know if you're like that's your bread
What's
and
your heart
butter.
in?
That's
What's
yeah,
your
yeah,
heart?
yeah.
Yeah, like
Uh-huh.
where are you being pulled? And for me,
Yep.
like quite frankly, I really don't like taking family photos. So for
Yeah.
me, I like this is going to make me you're a parent, so this is going to make me sound bad. I don't have kids, but I just I don't think your kid is as cute as you think they are. And it's like I
Oh,
don't
as a
find it
parent, I
yeah,
also
I'm
don't
like
think.
I don't find it amusing.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where I was like I found myself just getting angry that I was scheduling all these mini sessions at the end of the year and I was like, why am I doing this to myself? So
Mm,
finally I just gave myself permission like a few years ago. I was like, no. Not even for my clients. No. Like I'm
yeah.
done. And I that was the freedom of that was so nice. And I think there is a way to if you want to be that legacy photographer, I think that is very smart because you are creating a lifelong client. But there
Mhm.
is a way then that you have to package that. If you
Mm,
are not caring about whether or not your wedding clients are continuing their family and you're just booking one-off family stuff, that's where I think it needs to be separate, for sure. But you know, you do you, but make sure that it makes sense and like
yes.
make sure that it is done in a thoughtful way where it doesn't just look like you're shooting anything for anyone who will hire you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And also like if you do, cuz I enjoy some family photos. Most of the time, like I don't like the everyone sit over here in these wildflowers and stare at the camera and having to like dangle things over the camera like, hey kids, look over here, smile, no, look back over here, and that kind of stuff. I'm like, this is not fun for me,
Not
this is
my
not
jam.
fun. Yeah, I'm like, you're gonna get one nice photo
Mm.
out of this. And I love like the lifestyle and just like going to a creek and just walking in the water with
Yeah,
the kids and taking
play.
pictures of them like finding toads and stuff like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is the stuff that you're going to want to remember about the kids at this life stage, and that's the only only family photos that I take now.
Yeah, back when I was shooting family or was shooting newborn for my clients, I would
Hmm.
always just be so specific and I would say, I just want you to know, like this is my approach.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what your expectations are, so I want to make sure we're aligned in what I'm shooting and what I'm delivering. I
Yes.
honestly felt more pressure delivering mini session galleries than I do delivering a wedding gallery because I think the amount of money people pay for portrait sessions or even mini sessions, I mean they're designed to be cheaper and more affordable, but I honestly
Hmm.
feel like there's even more pressure because you're having to manufacture these moments within a 15 to 20 minute time slot.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like as like I don't know. I just like again, I don't have kids, but as a mom, I would want to be like, well, did we get everything? Did we get it? Like did we
Hmm.
not? Like what did,
Hmm.
and it's like that kind of energy doesn't
It's
doesn't live well in me.
No, me neither. And I know that there are other photographers. Like I know like Rebecca Rice thrives in mini sessions. She does that all the time, and
If you
that is
have a
great.
system,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And if that is for you, like for you, Molly, you are fine art wedding photographer. Like you, that is where you thrive, and that is what makes you come alive creatively. And
Mm,
like going to a wedding is not like a I can't believe like I gotta go this Saturday
yeah.
again to another wedding. It's just like I cannot wait. I
Yeah.
am ready
And
early and I'm out the door, and yeah.
exactly. And the more aligned clients that I get, the more they trust me, which is really
Uh-huh.
lovely because I find that, like, when I was in that mundane portion of my business, I wasn't charging probably near, well, I know I wasn't because I remember my taxes. I wasn't charging enough for the value I was providing. And for me, you start to feel resentful. And I never want to feel resentful towards clients, towards planners, towards anybody, because I'm choosing this profession, I'm choosing this job.
Mhm.
Um, but what I do think is been great is with this major shift, finding aligned clients who trust me to do my job, who aren't as concerned about a shot list. Yes, of course, we need to get those like logistical family photos for your parents, grandparents. Those are a must. And we'll do it, and we'll do it efficiently, but I want you to be a part of your party. I
Yeah.
don't want you to feel like photography held you back in any way. And the more you can allow us just to like candidly document your day and have it be so like authentically you, and I hate that word authentic, or like I just, it's like such
It's
a
yeah,
a
everyone's been
hot
using
word.
it over,
I
but
don't
yeah,
I don't love
it's
to use it for branding.
uh-huh.
But truly just allowing your couples to move organically, naturally within, and the setting that they are, and gently guiding them, but not having these stagnant poses. And it's just really freeing, and it makes you really open your eyes to what gets you excited and how you can implement that on a wedding day. And if you
Yeah.
don't know how to do that, then practice it on your off days, or practice it, or go to a workshop, or set something up yourself, and like give yourself the space to find what really lights you up, because those are the images that will translate the best on your marketing and on social and on your website. And you'll be pulled to share those more when you are going through your portfolio.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and, like, with all of that, yeah, I'm just, like, picturing the listener right now who's like, "Molly, that sounds amazing. I
I was like,
want
that was a
that."
tangent. That was a
Yeah.
tangent. If that was ever a tangent, that
Yeah,
was it.
that's perfect. We love tangents here.
Mm,
But, like, for the listeners who really want to kinda break into that next level of photography, or maybe not level is the right word, but just, like, into the different client base. Like you
serving a higher
said,
market.
serving a higher market,
If
yeah.
you want to make more money.
Yeah. How what are some steps that people can take for that when it comes to, like, their portfolio and what they're
Sure.
sharing with everyone?
You have to think about who your ideal client, what they're going to want to see, and that might
Mhm,
not align with what you're currently shooting. So that means that you need to remove the things that they don't want and
mhm,
figure out how you can showcase what they do want. If you are wanting to be a destination photographer, but you are landlocked in, Missouri, you need to plan some trips and get scenics and get different lifestyle images in different cities that you want to target, or you need to showcase that you are on an airplane or whatever. Like there are different ways that you can showcase this elevated um you know uh marketing, if
mhm.
you will. And again, this is just for the example of destination, but the other part is, what's stopping you from creating like what they'd be into? So my biggest suggestion for people who are looking to showcase not quality, because the imagery in itself, I'm sure everyone's producing great quality,
Yeah,
but in terms of higher notoriety with brands and designer brands. Our luxury clients are not going to be showcasing Steve Madden shoes. They're just not. So if you have flat lays like with Steve Madden shoes in it, that doesn't mean that that's a bad client or it wasn't a beautiful wedding. It just means you're going to get more of those. So if you're
mhm,
showcasing, you're going to show whatever you're showing, you're getting more of, right? So for me, when I wanted to change things, I was like, oh man, none of my brides have like worn Jimmy Choos. I went and I bought 3 pairs of designer shoes, brought them home, did flat lays, return them the next day. I'm
yeah,
sorry, there's no shame in that. Like
mhm,
designers do that, stylists do that for photo shoots. Why is it any different? If anything, we're not even putting them on somebody's foot. It's
right,
literally just a flat lay.
yeah,
But that's the quickest and easiest way that I tell people that it is a quick shift in showcasing the level of client you might be serving. And you want to be able to think about your ideal client, picturing themselves in your photos. So if
Mhm.
you want somebody who is more organic and free flowing and like willing to go prancing through that creek, you need to set that up. You need to figure out how you can do it, whether it's offering a free shoot to a really attractive set of friends of yours. Great.
Yeah,
Like I know that sounds shallow, but it really is like how things shift. And it is unfortunate that, not everything, the Steve Madden shoes just aren't going to hold next to Jimmy Choo's. They're just not. And I
right.
love Steve Madden. I'm not dogging Steve Madden. I've got a
Yeah.
number. But I'm just it's that visual branding and the alignment of that you want to showcase that you have that in common with
Mm,
your ideal client. Oh yes, I also see value in this brand or in this style or this type of floral or whatever it is, and be able to showcase that. So there's
yeah.
ways that you can like kind of tippy toe into it. My very first suggestion for people is to get those elevated styling details. I don't suggest going into debt for this type of stuff. So like buy and return, like do not
Mhm.
keep.
Yeah.
So that is the easiest way, but then I think the other part of this too, a lot of times people are too close to their work and they can't look at it objectively in a way where they don't feel the emotion behind maybe what they experienced on a wedding day for that client.
Uh-huh.
But from a curator, so as stepping into like my curator gallery shoes, it's okay, what am I feeling as the viewer? As somebody who's unattached to what was happening, maybe there's this really sentimental story, but nobody else knows that.
Right.
So how are you showcasing impactful images that someone who is not attached to them is resonating with? And I know so many educators offer this. There's image curation, there's gallery audits. You can get people's feedback. Those are fairly attainable price points typically. My offerings I feel like are pretty attainable, and you get a substantial amount of feedback. But so many people in the industry do this and offer this, so just find someone who you admire and
Mhm.
see if they're willing to do this for you, whether you're hiring them or not. See if you're willing to get eyes and be like, hey, can you look at this gallery and can you just mark your favorites? Like what does that look like? What are they coming back with?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure everyone who's been published who's listening to this will agree with me when you say you send a gallery to an editor and the photos that they choose to focus on the blog are like, oh, I wonder why they chose that because that's not my favorite.
Mhm.
But there's a reason. There's definitely a reason. So I think having a second set of eyes on your work, that is going to be the next step to really help you look at your work, take a step back and look at it a little bit more objectively and really get more discerning in how you are showcasing things. And this also goes to, don't showcase the same pose over and over and over, even if it's your go-to. We
Right.
can't see 12 of the same him kissing her forehead on your homepage. There
Uh-huh.
has to be hero images, which maybe that's your go-to shot and that's what people come to you for. Great. But we need to see like the best supporting actors throughout. Do
Right,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like they all serve a purpose. So
Yeah.
those supporting and establishing shots are very important, especially on a homepage, especially on social media, because that's where everyone's landing and that's where you get your chance at a first impression.
Mhm.
So those
Yeah.
those those first few things of like elevating your details, because details are a really easy way to supplement into your feed, into social. They don't have to be from a wedding.
Mhm.
And then getting a second pair of eyes on your work to really give you insight of what's resonating, what's not, what's fluff, where can we trim the fat.
Yes, and I love that you mentioned not having the same pose or the same type of photo over and over and over again, because there are those poses that we love, and it's like, I love to do this with every couple, and every time that I see the pose and, like, that photo afterwards, I'm just like, "Oh, this is great. I gotta
You're
share
like, this
this."
is the sneak peek, and then
Yeah,
you see your social and you're like, oh,
and
there's
I'm like, "Oh, they're all
like
the
12
same."
12 of those 20 squares are this shot.
Yeah, yeah, and, like, and even just the, like, if you have a close-up photo, and then a wide landscape hero image, like that is going to look better than just a bunch of close-up photos, bunch of details, a bunch of
So
the
much better.
same thing. It's going to show a more well-rounded experience for your potential client who is scrolling through your website and they just
Sure.
see a bunch of close-up photos of people's hands and kissing foreheads, and they're like,
Yep.
okay, I see
Yeah,
that you do
you
this
get it.
well. Can you take a photo of us, in
Yep.
our environment?
And
Uh,
don't be afraid of white space. So, like in the
yeah.
graphic world, like white space is referred to obviously all the space that doesn't have print or graphics or anything on it. White space in weddings are detail images or scenics, or maybe it's literally the sky with a single bird flying through. Like, those are some of my favorite shots to add into a
Hmm.
gallery because they're establishing of the feeling, of the sense of the atmosphere that you're in, and they serve so well as
Yeah.
breaking up the monotony on your feed. So on that grid, use that white space like wisely. It allows your viewer a chance to like breathe, and like it
Hmm.
allows the eye a chance to rest, which when someone goes and sees so much stuff on a feed, it can be overwhelming. Granted, we're of the era that like people are just used to it now,
Yeah.
but I can tell you someone's going to stay on your feet a lot longer if it is aesthetically pleasing to scroll and they don't feel overwhelmed.
Yes.
And that's where the curation and like really being mindful of your work, and showcasing the best of the best, and again obviously what you want more of is just so important.
Hmm. Yeah. And that sets you apart from all the other photographers that they're going to. And it's just like couple,
Hmm.
and close up photos. And then they go to yours and it's like, oh, there's that photo of that bird flying
Right.
through the air. And here's a beautiful colored door with, of the venue. And those kind of things, like, it's like, oh, this is more interesting
Hmm.
to go through. And why do they post this picture of a door? What is this door? And
Hmm.
like that would boost their curiosity a little bit more of wanting to stay on your feed, wanting to stay on your website longer than, yeah, this looks like everyone else. Let me go to their
Even
pricing now.
Exactly. Even if it's not getting the traction or the engagement that you want, it's still serving a purpose. So please
Hmm.
don't let that be the reason why you don't do it. If you want that hero shot because that's what gets the most likes every time, great. If it works, awesome. But as a curated body of work, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice by not creating an experience for the person who lands on it.
Yes.
So I think it's super important. Like for me, when I started shooting destination very early on in my career, it's like, okay, like I had a destination wedding in Switzerland, and it's like, so I started showing like the mountains and like all the scenic photos that I took there. I started showing that. They're like, oh, where is that? And I was like, oh, that was at a wedding that I did in Switzerland. And they're like, oh, you travel? Yes, I absolutely do. So
Hmm.
it just starts to resonate with people, and it's a snowball effect. So yeah, that's I know that's
Yeah.
a lot, but just think of your Instagram as a homepage also.
Yeah.
It has to be thoughtfully displayed.
Hmm. Yep. Okay. Molly, I have loved this. This has been so much good, so many
So
good
bossy.
things. Yeah,
I'm like,
no,
don't
that's
do this. Don't do
yeah.
this.
Hey, that's what we need sometimes is someone to tell us, because there's so many people. I just had someone recently ask, like, I'm a new photographer and there's so much information out there. How do I know
Yeah.
what to listen to, what to
Yeah.
implement? It's like, do this, don't do that. Like, if
Exactly.
you want this outcome, go do this thing instead of just like, well, you can if you want to.
Right.
But yeah, no, I love
Yeah,
that.
and I
Yeah.
know my method is not for everybody. I know
Yeah.
I'm not for everybody. And it's
Hmm.
like there is stuff out there for you. If you don't resonate with me or resonate with somebody else,
Yep.
there is a resource out there for you.
Yeah.
So just like keep looking.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the beauty of having so many photography educators out there is you're going to find your people.
Yeah,
And I have been mentored by many different photographers, and
same.
some of them I was like, yeah, I got nothing. I'm sorry. Like, I know this wasn't a waste of money, but I
Oh,
kind of feel like it may have
I've
been.
had some wasted money. I've had some real regretful, bank
Yeah.
statements.
Yep, yep. Yeah, and then I've had others that I'm like, I would have given you 10 times this because
Exactly.
of the value that I got and the way that I learned from you.
Right.
So, yeah. But yeah, Molly, I really appreciate everything that you shared today. And I'm excited for the listener who's just like pulling up their portfolio right now and they
Yeah.
are curating and they're looking at that and they're going to get some eyes on their portfolio to view as a potential client and not the photographer who is emotionally tied to every single photo.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, and
no,
that's the
I love
thing.
all that.
It's about telling the story really in a
Hmm.
sense in the least amount of photos. So it's like
Yes.
if you are somebody who's delivering 1500 photos for a wedding, I feel like that's not only overwhelming for you, but it's overwhelming for the
Hmm.
client. Sometimes they don't know what to do with that. So
Yeah.
it's like how can we tell the story thoughtfully and accurately and with the depth that it deserves in the least amount of images. That's what I'm always thinking of when I'm going through the work.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's the best. I mean, that we go into like layering and
I know.
framing and all that kind of stuff to get like, I love a good, like, whenever there's toasts or something at a
Mm,
wedding and getting the foreground and the speaker and all of that layered together instead of here's a photo of who's speaking, here's a photo of the reaction from the couple,
right.
but layering them together to tell the story in
Hmm.
one image instead of, well, if you put these three or four in a row, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love it. Well,
Yeah.
okay. Before we wrap up, there's part of the show that I love to do where we
Oh,
talk about
yes.
what we're loving this week,
Oh, boy.
and it can be anything from movies, TV shows, books to just like a new tree that you saw on a walk or something.
Okay.
What are you loving
I can
this
just
week?
go for it. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, my husband made me a really good burrito last night, and that was the first burrito in a while. So that was really
Nice.
yummy. No, actually, what I'm loving, I'm not a big reader. And as somebody who travels very, very frequently, I
Uh-huh.
was on the road for about 4 months of last year. So for somebody who's on the road all the time, audibles have become my best friend. And
Mm.
I really, really love people's stories and I love memoirs, autobiographies, that kind of stuff. Famous people, who nobodies, it doesn't matter. I'm a big fan of Brandy Carlisle and I just listened to her Audible and I've listened to a number and she just jumped to the top of my list. It was incredible. She's an amazing storyteller and
Mm.
if you're a fan, she sings in almost every chapter, which is rad.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that I just finished that this week and I was blown away. Like blown away.
Huh. That's really cool. I
Yeah.
like that about audiobooks,
Mm.
especially whenever the author is reading it
It
and you
has to be
get.
read by the author.
Yeah. Yeah, there are some that I'll get and I'm like, "Oh, this is that
Yeah,
one
it's
dude
not gonna
who's
work.
just and this is how we
Oh
speak
no.
through this." I'm like, "I'm gonna fall asleep. I'm sorry."
Yeah, unless you're David
But
Attenborough, you're not gonna be
yeah.
able to swing it for me.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, that's really cool. I love that she
Yeah.
sings in the
She sings
audiobook
in
as
almost
well.
every chapter. So
That's
and
really cool.
what's really amazing is she sings the songs of the stuff that she just talked about, whatever her life experience was or whatever. So now you're getting this like you might have loved a song for a certain reason, but now you are like, "Oh man, this is really what the song is about," and you
Mhm.
appreciate it in such a different level. I don't know. I was blown away. I obviously and I just if you're a fan or even if you're not and you just are curious about famous people's lives, I think it's a really really good one to listen to.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I am very curious about famous people's lives,
Mm,
because I love the everyday part of
mhm.
celebrities.
Well, living in
Because
LA, I've
oh
had
yeah.
my I've it's a lot. 15
Oh,
year
I'm
15
sure.
years of living and working with celebrities, it's a lot. Especially through Leica, we had a lot of celebrity clients that we'd work with.
Yeah.
So super fascinating. And just interesting in general. Like I said, I don't really get like starstruck, but it is
Mhm.
very interesting to learn the details of these people's like existence
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
what makes them famous, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's very very interesting seeing a celebrity in, like, street clothes,
Mm.
and because I saw, my first celebrity encounter was Donald Sutherland, in Santa Monica, just
Yeah.
walking his dog,
Well, and
and
I'm sorry, but in LA, like famous people look homeless usually. Like
I was gonna say, he's,
they
like, in a
literally look
robe. Yeah.
no, yeah, they look the most disheveled. So
Yeah.
if you're in LA and you're not from there and you see somebody, it's a 50-50 shot that it could be like
Yeah.
Brad Pitt, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah. I mean, like, if I was famous and people would recognize me if I'm, like, walking around in, like, a nice suit or blazer or something, I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm definitely gonna, like, not do my hair, and I'm gonna
You're
be
gonna be a hot
wearing
mess.
this old stained hoodie, and
Yeah.
no one's gonna recognize me. But yeah, like, I was just like, "That's Donald Sutherland." And, like, I waved at him, and then he waved back, and that
What
is
a
my
gem.
I know.
That's a good one to see.
Yeah, I was very, very happy, and that was my first time out in California, so I was like,
Yeah.
"See, California is magical."
Yeah. Come back out.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take you on a star-studded tour.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that'll be fun. Okay, cool. I like that, and I'll have a link to that book in the show
Oh
notes
yeah.
as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, let's see. I am loving. So before we started recording,
Mhm.
we were talking about HBO Max,
Oh yeah.
and recently finally got the full subscription and everything. I've done trials before, but I was
Good
like,
for you.
there's too many shows on there that I was
Yeah.
interested in, and I was like, it's gonna be worth it, and it has been.
Yes.
So I just watched White Lotus,
First
and
or second season?
I watched both of them.
Okay, yeah.
But
Wild. Isn't it
yeah,
amazing?
it's a wild story. It's great filming. Like this,
Incredible.
the cinematography, the way that they would just like back to that white space
Yep.
of just having the undertow of the
Setting the
waves
scene.
setting
Those
the scene.
establishing shots.
Yes.
Exactly.
And it definitely drew you more into the story than just like going from this conversation over to this conversation
It
that's
sets a
now happening
mood.
on the beach.
It
And yeah,
sets a mood. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
And
that's
like
such a good one. I'm glad you watched
yeah,
it.
and some of those, establishing shots did, like, really change the mood of, like, "Oh,
Yeah.
something sinister is happening," or, "This
Yeah,
is, like,
for sure.
something sneaky is going on," and
Yeah.
personally, I liked, season 1 better than season 2.
So
Um,
yeah, I have mixed. I think season 1 was so different than anything we had seen that the
yes, that could
shock
be it.
value
Yeah.
makes it really, really interesting. And I thought the characters were amazing.
Mhm.
I feel like
Plus, I
this,
love Connie Britton and,
yeah,
Steve Zahn. Steve Zahn was
yeah,
one of my favorites in the early
so funny.
2000s. Yeah.
So funny. So I think the storyline of the second one wasn't as like maybe interesting, but I thought the
Mhm.
character choices were really interesting. So I
Yes.
mean, they both serve different things, and it's like your show is good when you're like really annoyed by somebody like in the
Uh-huh.
show, or
Uh-huh.
like they've nailed the character, or you're
Yes.
just like, why are you like that? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, why are you making that decision? Like, you know that it's a good job because it's like thoughtfully done. But I agree. I think there's plus and minus to both of them, but I
Agree.
kind of did like the first one better.
Yeah. Yeah, they're both great.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
mean, Italy, you
it's
can't go wrong with Italy.
I
So just the
know.
scenery there was unreal.
Yeah. Yeah, the scenery and those establishing shots of just the architecture and
Yeah.
everything. I'm just like,
They took over
yeah.
they took over that place. I don't
Oh,
understand.
yeah. Yeah, I know. It was crazy. So, yeah, White Lotus is great.
Amazing.
There's a reason they've won awards and stuff.
Absolutely.
But yeah, well, that's what I'm loving. Molly, where can people find you? Where can they follow along, find you on socials, all those things?
Sure, yeah. My wedding photography website is mollymccauley.com. And then my education, workshops, mentorship, all of those offerings are at makeprettyworkshop.com. And same thing for social. So it's Make Pretty Workshop on Instagram and Molly McCauley underscore photo on Instagram for my personal wedding work.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, sweet. Yeah, I'll have those linked in the show notes. So, listener, you can just scroll on down and click on over to those. But
amazing. Thanks so
yeah.
much.
Well, Molly, thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed getting to talk to you today.
So did I. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Listeners, viewers, it was good having you here on YouTube and Facebook.